3D Santa Cameo that can be worn as a pendant or as an ornament for your tree by Hotpinkzebrapolish. Hi everyone, in today's video I am making a Santa cameo. This is the first of my Christmas designs for this year and they are coming. I did upload a preview, so if you're interested in what else is to come, I will put a link to that in the description box below so you can see all that's coming in the future. But this one in particular, it's a larger cameo than the ones that I've made in the past. However, I do think that it would work just fine to have as a necklace, or it could also work as, say, a brooch or as an ornament. I really love this. It's a cameo that I really thought of making for quite a while now, and I searched photos and photos and photos to find one that I thought would fit with the image I had in my head, and I think that I'm really happy with the way that it turned out. So I hope you like it, and if you are interested in it, it is listed in my online store, and I will put a link to that in the description box below. So check that out, and I will see you in my next video. So the first thing I did is I just set my cameo frame that doesn't have any sort of back on it, and I just put that on top of a nail form backing so that when I start filling in the center with acrylic, it doesn't run all over the place and just create a mess. And then it'll also have a nice smooth back then once I peel it off when the acrylic is set. Also, I quickly want to mention that I am holding the frame down really nice and tightly just to prevent any of that acrylic from sneaking underneath there and maybe just making the back of the cameo not as pretty as it could possibly be. So I just want to make sure it's nice and tight to create a smooth looking back. And also I just filled that in with green acrylic, trying to make it as smooth as I possibly can on the front as well. So then I'm going to be taking some clear gel, and this is actually Madame Glam's clear gel top coat, just because I don't have any builder gel. If you do have builder gel though, I'd probably recommend using that instead. And I'm just going to add a layer of that, and then once I've got that in there, I did flip that over for a couple seconds just to help give it a slight dome appearance. Once that is finished and I'm satisfied with it, I stuck that in my lamp to cure. So now I'm going to start sculpting out my Santa. So I began with his face, I'm just going to create sort of an upside down egg shape, and that's with white acrylic. And then I'm going to start adding all of these red shapes. So I'm not too focused on the 3D elements. So I'm not going to necessarily make everything its dimensional qualities. I'm not going to worry about that at the moment. Just get the basic shapes down, get the outlines in place. So I started with like his shoulders, and then I'm going to work on, he's sort of tilted 3/4, so you can see like the front of him, and then you can also kind of see his side. So from this angle, kind of cuts in at his waist and then fans back out around his hips. So I'm just going to go down and work on the bottom of his coat, and you want to make sure that you leave a slight slant on everything, again, to give it that slightly turned appearance. And also, if you wanted to, you can make it so that you can see the center of his coat where it's not necessarily open, but it's got the two flaps of material. You can give a little indentation for that too. But I'm also just going to be adding his Santa hat. And at this point, I know it looks extremely strange, all these shapes, because you can't really depict what's happening yet, but soon enough it'll all make sense. So then I'm going to add just some cover pink over his face just to give it that hue that we're going for. And then I'm going to go through and I'm going to add some of my thickness to my Santa. So like I said, because he is turned, the side that is when you're looking at it on the left, that's going to want everything there to be thicker because that's closer to you when you're looking at it. And then everything that's on the right, you want that to look like it's further away, so it's a little bit shallower and it's not quite as dimensional and thick. And then when you're working on that arm that is closer to the camera, you're going to want to make sure that you curve that up as if his hand is going to be holding on to the ends of the bag of toys that is going to be coming up and over his other shoulder, so the shoulder that's farther from the camera. So just make sure that you add some thickness there and really make sure that that arm shows and is visible. And I also added that little definition between the two sides of his coat, just there, making a little ledge between the two sides. And you don't want it to go straight in the middle because remember, you're not looking at him straight on. So it has to be at just like a 2/3 of the way across his body is where that center of his coat would be. And then with black acrylic, I'm going to go through and add his belt. And I know that I'm getting a little bit of black residue on the coat, but that's okay. Once you start painting and stuff, it won't show and it will pretty much just disappear and look right as rain. So I'm just going to add that belt going across his midsection there. And again, having that tilted up at just a slight angle. So now for his boots, they are not going to be the same. They're not just going to be opposite each other. So you're going to add the first one that you see in profile. So you're going to see like the whole foot on the side. And you want to make sure that you cut in just a little bit before the heel to give it the sole not just flat, make it a little more interesting. Just got a little more acrylic to like the toe area and to the heel, just once again add some definition. And then for his other boot, since you're looking at that one straight on, you're going to see the ankle part, and then you're just going to see the toes. So you're not going to see the whole heel. So you want to have it just be the ankles and then a thicker section for the toes, as I just said. So I don't know if all of that makes sense, but because his feet are kind of tilted in almost an L shape, and because you're looking at it from the side, that's why we have that view. So I'm going to be adding the little trims all over. So I'm going to add the trim on his hat, and then I'm going to take a safety pin and I'm just going to poke it. So I just jabbed it a whole bunch of times once the acrylic had turned slightly matte. And so that's going to give it almost that fur type texture. And it does take a second for the acrylic to be ready to be poked. So from here on out, I'm going to do 2 sections at a time and then go back and poke the first one and then go and add that texture to the second section that I added. So as you can see, I did the little fur ball at the end of his hat and then I jabbed it. And then I went through and I added the trim on one half of his coat and went back through and jabbed it. Now I'm going to be adding a little bit of trim on the other part of his coat, just like that. Bring it up just a little bit again to help with that definition between the sides, and then the coat on the cuff of one of his pant legs, and then go back through and start poking. Yep, it's a lot of little safety pin pokes in here. It doesn't take much time though, and you don't want to do it as a pattern. You don't want it to be nice little rows of little holes. You want to make sure you just kind of go at it like you're, I don't know, attacking something with a vengeance. And then it'll look nice and random and natural. And also add a little bit of that fur trim at the collar of his coat, and I also did the other pant cuff. And so now I'm going to be adding his bag. So I'm taking, it's a warm, soft gold acrylic, and it kind of, I don't know, I'm trying to think of what, it reminds me of like a tabby cat fur. Like a, not as orange as some tabbies, but I don't know. I don't know what cat I'm thinking of specifically here. It seems like there's a cat I have in mind. I don't know which one though. Anyways, it's that color, and I don't know why that would even help you because you don't know the cat I'm thinking of. I don't even hardly know the cat I'm thinking of. But you can see it, so that's just, that should be good enough. But it's a soft gold acrylic, and then I added the bag, and so you want to have most of the bag behind him, but then just a little bit of like the tail of the bag out that you will add his hands to in a second. And so now I'm going to be adding the cuff of the sleeve that you can see there, and also his hand. So I'm gonna add the cuff and then the hand, and then I'm gonna go back through with my safety pin and poke the cuff. Do not poke his hand though; that would probably hurt. And I'm also going to be adding his beard. So I'm going to start and just lay down more of that white acrylic. Sort of pull that up into the corners of his head like so. Make sure you leave enough space to paint his eyes and everything in a moment. You're going to do that later on. So I'm just going to lay that down. And you're also going to need to make sure that you add a teensy bit of a mustache too. Just like that. Then with a tiny bead of more of the Cover Pink acrylic, add his nose on top of the mustache, sort of right smack dab. And same thing as I said with the coat, how it's not quite in the center. Oops, sorry, I just hit my microphone. It's the same thing with his face. You want to make sure that his beard and everything just tilted slightly to the side. Keep everything in that same line. So now I'm going to go and I'm going to be adding a couple of little acrylic presents. So I'm going to be making 3, 2 on one side and 1 on the other. And with these, they are not completely squares. They are angled on the sides. So they kind of look like you're seeing them slightly from the top. So they kind of curve or angle down a little bit on the ends or towards the floor or ground, just like that. Just lay them down. I put them a little bit higher than his feet, but just a touch. And then with bronze acrylic, I put down a square right in where the center of his stomach would be, and I just pulled that out and to create the belt buckle. And then using that same bronze color, I'm just going to be adding the gifts in the bag. If you wanted to, you could go through and make specific gifts, like you could put in a teddy bear and things like that. I want it to be kind of generalized. I didn't want that to be the focus, so I just used a couple blobs of bronze. So now I'm going to be using some white builder gel, and with my gel brush, I'm just going to be laying that on around his feet and around the gifts. And I do not want this to look smooth. I don't want it to be all pristine and glassy looking. I want to have kind of a rough and tumble texture. I don't know if I've ever said that particular phrasing of anything before in my life. I don't think it makes sense either. Anyways, so just add it so it looks like it's got little snow drifts and like he's been tromping through it, and it's not perfect. I don't necessarily go for perfection in what I do. I go for, I don't know, casual realism, I guess. I don't know if that's really a thing either. I'm all full of new statements today. Anyways, I'm just gonna add that in there, making sure that it kind of goes up the sides just a little bit and covers the bottoms of each of his feet and each of the gifts, and making sure that it just looks like it's nice fluffy white snow. And then I'm going to, after I'm happy with that, I'm going to flash cure it, just so that I don't mess with it in a second anyway. And so, yep, that was good. And I'm going to take with just a little brush and the same builder gel, and I'm going to make little tiny polka dots in the background to create snow. And you don't have to use builder gel, you could use acrylic paint, and same thing for the snow beneath his feet. If you didn't have that, you could use just paint or gel paint too, or you could use acrylic. But I'm using the builder gel, and for the background polka dots of snow, that will also give those a 3D texture too, which is kind of a cute little touch. And so once those are done, I'm going to cure the whole thing fully. So for me, that's 2 minutes in a UV lamp. So now I'm going to go, and I mixed some clear gel sealer with some, it's kind of a satiny white glitter, and I'm just going to add a little bits of highlights to the snow. And this glitter isn't overly glittery. Like I said, it's kind of satiny looking. But once that's on there, I'm going to cure it again. And then with a dark green paint, I'm going to be painting a line or a stripe of ribbon down each of the gifts and add 2 little loops for a bow on top of them. Just like that. And then I'm going to be adding a shadow around his feet. So I'm going to touch up with just black his boots. But then with a gray color, I'm just going to add a shadow on the snow around his feet and around the bottoms of the gifts, just like that, just to make it look like they're kind of sunken in a little bit into the snow. Yeah, like that. Maybe blend it out a little bit, add some white highlights here and there. And then with gel sealer, go through and just paint over the background, make sure that everything that has that other gel on it has a nice layer on it so that it's not tacky anymore. But I'm not going to add any gel sealer to the Santa or to the gifts or his bag. So the white and green in the background. And now I'm going to be taking all kinds of acrylic paint, and I'm going to be painting my Santa. And so I'm going to start with some burgundy and add some shadows all around his snowsuit. Or it's not really a snowsuit, it's a Santa suit. And I'm also going to be adding some highlights to his face, and I'm going to add some gray on all of his white trim just to make it so it's got a little shadow on it, and also highlight. So for highlighting, I'm going to be using diluted white paint on everything that's red, and I'm going to be using full strength white on everything that's white. So he's got his white gloves and his the trim on his coat and his beard and all of that. And wherever you poked those holes in the trim before, that's all going to all the holes aren't going to highlight. So when you highlight, you can do a pretty solid line, especially if you don't have too much paint on your brush, because it's just going to pass right over those holes, and it's going to give it a beautiful texture that's really going to show off. And I also highlighted his boots and his coat, just like that. And then I'm going to be adding a little pink on his cheeks and for his lips too. And then I'm going to do some black lines, just a couple. So I'm going to do some shadowing with the black and separate like the sides of his coat, and make sure his arm is nice and defined, and a little bit on his hat, and just little black lines everywhere. I feel like they need just a touch more definition to make sure everything shows up really well. Same for the gifts, just make sure that you can see them really easy. And then add just a couple little lines on the gifts that are inside his bag. Again, I want that to be relatively abstract because I don't want to be the focus. Also highlighting, or outlining, between his hat and his face, and then his beard, giving him his eyes. A little white eyebrows. You can see my head shadow covering up my light source when I lean in to see what the heck it is I'm doing. Add some more, just little with brown. I added some shadows on the bag. And then I will apply matte top coat over the 3D stuff, so that'll be over Santa, his bag, and the gifts. And that is it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you like this design, and as I did mention, it is available in my online store, so if you're interested, check that out. And I will see you in my next video. Bye!